Today I'm going to show you how to make lilac sugar and simple syrup. This is a great way to add a subtle floral note to your baked treats or cocktails. You're going to start out by getting a bunch of lilac blossoms. I was able to cut over 12 clusters from my friend Brooke's lilac bush when it was at its peak in its blooming. You want to make sure that you get the blooms before they start to rust, which is just kind of turning crispy and brown. It looks like rust. That's cute. That's what people on the internet call it. But you want to collect your blooms before then, ideally very clean blooms that haven't been sprayed with any toxic chemicals since we're going to be eating them. You are going to want to separate all of the blooms from the green bits. We want just the flower. That's the part that is edible, and that's the part that we need for our sugar and our syrup. The best way that I found to remove them is to actually wait. Let your blooms sit for a day and then try to remove them the next day. I found that the day I brought them home, they were kind of hard. I sort of had to tug them, whereas the next day they just gently popped off. Either way, it is not difficult to remove them. It's actually kind of fun and relaxing to sit down and take all the clusters off. I collected mine in a colander so I could give it an easy little shake, keep any extra debris or critters out of it. Once you have a cup of blooms, you're ready to make your lilac sugar. The general guideline is to do about half blooms and half sugar. We're gonna go ahead and start by layering the sugar and the lilac flowers into a container with a lid. I like to use reusable takeout containers, give them an extra life, and give that a good shake. You can tell this one used to have cheese. After 2 to 3 days, you're gonna wanna sift out the blooms. I found this to be pretty difficult because you need to have a sieve that is open enough for the sugar granules to go through, but not so open that the flower petals start to go through. I let a lot of my sugar dry out a little bit too much. So I got lots of chunks and lots of little bits of brown flour, which isn't amazing. One of my containers turned into a solid little hockey puck, so I had to put that in the food processor to get it to work. You want to break that into little pieces before you try to use the food processor on it, but once you get it through there, you have a nice fine sugar again and you can use it in your baking. If you don't let your sugar dry out, it will kind of stay a little bit sandy in its container and you can just use it like you would use it in any other recipe. I used it in a few different baked goods. The first thing I did was put it into some blueberry muffins, and I think that I could taste it in those. The only reason I bring that up is because I also put it into some shortbread cookies, which is just butter, flour, and sugar, and I couldn't taste it at all. It just tasted like normal shortbread cookies. I went ahead and sprinkled some on top of some Danish pancakes, which are just sort of a butter egg based crepe pancake, and we usually just put granulated sugar on them and roll them up, but you couldn't taste it on those either, even when it was in its like raw form. So it wasn't the cooking process. I think butter-based dishes are just a little too heavy and those subtle floral flavors don't really translate. So it's kind of a fun game. Will I be able to taste the lilac sugar in this or not? The best thing that I found for this lilac sugar is to rim a glass for a cocktail, which brings us to our second project, making lilac simple syrup. This one starts out pretty similarly. You're gonna want 1 cup of sugar and 1 cup of water in a saucepan and bring it to a simmer on the stove. Once all the sugar is dissolved, you're gonna wanna put in a little handful of blueberries, 6 to 8 little blueberries. This is for color. If we don't add the blueberries, our syrup is gonna turn out a light golden yellowy color, but we want it to be purple, so we're gonna add blueberries. Next, you are gonna pour in a cup of your lilac blossoms and let that just continue to simmer for about 20 minutes. We don't want it to boil, we just want a light simmer. The blueberries are gonna break down just a little bit. It's gonna turn this beautiful, rich, dark purple color. It is very fun, it smells amazing. Once it's done, after the 20 minutes, you're gonna take it off the heat, let it cool for just a sec, and then strain out the flowers and the blueberries so that all you're left with is your simple syrup. I like to put mine in decorative glass containers for the fridge or mason jar, something with a lid. That way I can use it in drinks. You want to keep this refrigerated because it is better that way and it'll keep a little longer. To use your lilac simple syrup in a cocktail, we swapped it for the honey simple in a traditional bee's knees cocktail. It's basically the same thing as a gin sour though, now that I'm thinking about it. It's gin, it's a sugar, it's lemon, and the sugar is our lilac simple syrup. So to do this cocktail, it is a classic 2-1-1. You're gonna want 2 parts gin, 1 part lemon juice, and 1 part of your lilac simple syrup. You're gonna shake that in a cocktail shaker with ice and then strain into your rimmed cocktail glass with your lilac sugar on there. It is the prettiest, lightest, like spring drink. It's very bright and delicious. You have the botanicals from the gin. You have that subtle note from the lilac syrup. It just feels fancy. So I highly recommend doing that. I absolutely loved this syrup. It turned out really great. I think that there's a hint of a blueberry flavor in there. Sometimes I'm like, is that the lilac or is that like a gentle blueberry subtlety? Blueberry, lilac, whatever you call it. All in all, I think that this was a really awesome use of my time. It was fun to just sit down, slow down, take apart the flowers and incorporate them. The nectar gets on your fingers and it makes the whole house smell good. If you didn't want to eat your sugar, maybe yours has bits of flowers in it like mine, you could also put it in like a sugar scrub and like use that on your hands, that kind of thing. So you could give it away as a gift, a fancy lilac sugar gift. I'm just gonna keep mixing it into random baked goods until I find just the perfect thing. So thanks so much for watching.